What do you think most people get wrong about motivation?
They think it's a permanent fix. They think it's something that is a constant. They think that maybe once I get it, I'm going to hold on to it. And that's the thing about that I was telling you, that I always talk about. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. And a lot of times you have to learn to perform without motivation. You have to learn to perform without purpose. You have to learn to perform a lot of different things. And that's what people think. They think I need to have this motivation to work out, to study, to be better. So if they don't have it, they just don't fucking do it. And that's where you fail. You have to learn to train your mind well beyond motivation. If you have motivation, that's great. That's some kindling to the fire. All it takes is a little bit of spark, you can burn the whole forest up. But motivation, you have to learn to exist without it. You have to learn to be your best self when you're least motivated. And that's the tricky part about all that shit. Motivation is just a word. You have to have these different things in your mind on where you want to go and know that motivation is not going to get me there. Because I'm not going to always be motivated.
Many dreams die while suffering. Think about it. We conjure our biggest dreams, our most audacious goals, when we feel safe and warm, even if you're struggling financially, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Your grand plan to defy the odds probably came to you in a moment of comfort when you had time to evaluate where you are and how you got there. There is no space for big picture thinking when you're in the heat of battle. When all is calm, even temporarily, damn near anything can feel possible. So that's when you dream it up and map it all out. Then you begin, and unforeseen challenges knock you the fuck back. Whenever you're engaged in an intense struggle, the result of which will have a major impact on your life going forward, you will be challenged to your utmost. And these moments of truth within a larger quest can demand so much from you that you are bound to feel overmatched at times. When that happens, many people panic because they come to believe that they are imposters and their dream was actually a fantasy. In a blink, they go from being driven and focused to becoming convinced that they had no business even trying. So they quit right then, right there, while teetering on the edge. They fail to grasp that there is something they can do to jam that quitter's spiral, carrying them right down the drain. They can make the 1-second decision to think instead of react. During my second hell week, when I was in class 231, I was a driven mother. Bill Brown and I were the leaders of Boat Crew 2, and we had our own competition going to see who would be the baddest man in the whole class. But there was another guy in the mix who had captured my attention. Let's call him Mora. He was about our size, strong and fit, and whenever shit got hard on the beach or the grinder, he gravitated toward me. He was not in our boat crew, yet wanted to feed off of my energy because Bill Brown and I were performing at such a high level. We made hell look and feel not only manageable, but easy. On day 2 of Hell Week, Mora found me in the chow hall with a lost look on his face and fear in his eyes. I was busy filling my wet and sandy pockets with packets of peanut butter because I needed fuel to withstand the punishment I knew was coming. Even after consuming as many calories as I could, in 2 hours, I'd be hungry again and would eat damn near anything, even peanut butter gritty with sand and laced with pocket lint. Mora stared at me as if I were a creature from a different time, and I'd become wholly uncivilized after 2 days of surf torture and boat runs without a wink of sleep. I was now a caveman. Mora, on the other hand, looked like a traumatized modern man, and that was a clue that something was off. "Hey, Goggins," he whispered as his eyes darted around the room. "I don't want to be here anymore." The pressure cooker of Hell Week had temporarily unhinged him from his dream and his rational mind, and he looked like he was searching for an emergency exit. He was panic in human form, and I knew that because it was exactly how I felt when the first wave hit me in the very first hour of that same Hell Week. The Pacific Ocean was as cold as ever when that massive 6-foot wall of water picked me up, flipped me 3 times, and pounded me into the wet sand. It was as if the ocean itself was saying, "Get the fuck out of here." And I listened because my lungs were still burning from the bout of pneumonia that got me rolled into this class from class 230 just 2 months earlier. And because water was my kryptonite. There were 130 hours of Hell Week to come, and I knew that a good chunk of them would be spent in the cold ocean. That cocktail of suck hijacked my brain to send out signals far more troubling than ambivalence. I wasn't wondering if I had what it took or if I was prepared for the moment. The voice in my head was saying, "I don't really want to be a Navy SEAL." For more than a year, my quest to become a SEAL had been all-consuming. I'd never wanted anything as badly or committed so completely to the process. But when you are locked into a sufferfest, there are times when the conditions will become intolerable, and a self-sabotaging impulse rooted in shock and fear will feel like clarity. I was a half step from voluntarily pulling the plug on a dream that had the power to change the course of my entire life. I glanced over at Bill Brown, resigned to the fact that he would soon stand alone as the baddest man in class 231. Then, from the knee-deep, swirling shallows, I scanned the horizon, where a destroyer was heading out to sea. The instructors had warned us that if we didn't make it through training, we'd be assigned to a ship like that, where we'd be stuck chipping paint for 6 months at a time. They made it sound like the most miserable deployment on Earth. But to me, in that instant, it sounded like heaven. Most SEAL instructors love quitters. When you tell them that you're too cold and you want out, they are more than happy to take you by the hand and lead you to the warmest shower of your life, because in their minds, it proves that they are better than you. Once you step into that shower, you get so warm within a minute that you forget what being cold even felt like, and then you realize that your warmth just cost you a piece of your soul, if not the whole thing, which can lead to a lifetime of regret. Time was of the essence. I could not crawl back onto the beach and take 10 minutes to get my mind right. I was in the eye of a psychological storm, and all around me, the water was still frothing and growling. Part of the problem was that the cold water had stolen the breath from my lungs. I was gasping and panic breathing. In order to think clearly, I needed oxygen. I took a deep breath and then another. And in that time, my possible future played out in my head. I watched myself stagger back to the beach and lay my helmet down. Within days, I was flushed right out of the military and sent back to Indiana, where I struggled through a series of low-level, low-impact jobs, which were the only ones I was qualified for. Minimum wage security guard, lifeguard at a local pool, and exterminator. That was true clarity. All my aspirations would be vaporized if I left surf torture behind, because I was a reservist. And if I snapped and quit, the Navy wouldn't even want me on one of their ships. I could not afford to lose my SEAL training, and that cold ocean were exactly where I belonged. So I needed to calm the down and meet the challenge head on. I took another breath as the next big wave swelled. It smashed the shit out of me too, but I managed to scramble toward the group and lock arms with my teammates. I was done showing weakness. I was finished with fear. I would stay in that water as long as it fucking took. When we got called back onto the sand 10 minutes later, the men in my boat crew were shivering and stiff. They were so cold, they didn't even want the edges of their soaked t-shirts to graze their skin. We needed to warm up fast. And the only way to do that during Hell Week is to go hard. I nodded to Bill, grabbed the front of the boat, and shouted out orders. As a unit, Boat Crew 2 started putting the fuck out like Hell Week was our natural habitat. Often, it's the shock that launches the spin out. For me, it was the snap of the cold water that triggered my fight or flight response, which comes with an adrenaline rush that spikes the heart and respiratory rates and puts your insecurities on blast. Your body and mind react that way because they want to protect you by telling you to get the fuck out. Fight or flight is exactly what Mora was experiencing in the chow hall. His fear and panic owned him. When I was teetering on the brink, I was able to physically calm myself down with a few deep breaths, and that helped me see through the adrenaline rush. My heart rate was still elevated, and panic continued to creep in, but I'd regained enough of my composure to make a conscious 1-second decision to stay in the fight. That took mental fortitude because the water hadn't suddenly warmed up. I was still cold and miserable and staring at 130 hours of hell. But I was able to see that the life I desired was on the other side of surf torture. I did not cave into emotion and quit. When people do that, they aren't even making an actual decision to quit. It's a default reaction due to stress. I get that it's difficult not to give in to all that emotion, acute pain, and discomfort. All you really want at that point is for it to end.